Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Martin, and tonight we are talking about J2 horror movies. What were Jared and Jensen in between seasons of Supernatural, where there's still monster hunting, or at least monsters are involved? But before we get into all of that, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Layla.
Hi, I'm Layla Dorine. I write a little bit of everything in the LGBTQ fiction and romance genres, from bikers to rockers to all points in between. It's great to be here.
All right. Carole.
Hi, I'm Carole Stokes. I've been a Supernatural fan since season 3. Started writing fanfic in 2012. This past fall, I debuted as an romance author under the name Ellis Colton. And I'm also one of the co-hosts for the Spotify podcast, So Get This, The Lore of Supernatural Fanfiction.
Wow.
Cool.
Hansi?
I'm Hansi Oppenheimer from Scree Projects. I do oral history of fandom, documentary, and some writing.
And I'm Gail Martin and Morgan Bryce. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. But all my modern worlds are ones Sam and Dean could walk into and feel right at home. I fell in love with the show halfway through season 11, binge watched 11 seasons in 4 months. And then I started binging on fan fiction, and well, that earned me the title of obsessed fan. So here we are. So, in addition to shooting Supernatural, back especially in the earlier years, Jared and Jensen also found time to fit in some horror movies. Let's kind of go through one at a time, take a look at them, kind of think about the good, bad, and the ugly of all of these, although, of course, our boys could never be ugly, but sometimes the script writing, might be. And let's start with Devour. Layla?
Oh, definitely not one of my favorites. I don't have much positive to say about that movie at all, actually.
It's my favorite of all of them.
Really? Okay. Hold that thought till we get Carole's read on this.
On Devour?
Yeah.
Devour had ambitions. It had ambitions, and I think of pretty much all the movies, I liked that it was not just about lots of gore. Unfortunately, it didn't make those ambitions really well.
It's hard to make a good film.
There are things I liked and things I didn't like.
Okay. Hansi, you're the contrarian here.
I love it. I think it's the most interesting of all the movies they made, because all the other ones are like part of franchises, or there's maybe 2 that Jared's in where he's like in it for like a moment, or it just seems like with Jared they never knew what to do with him. But Devour is kind of like Dean. It's kind of like watching Dean Winchester in that situation. Like the characters feel so close. I don't know if it was just because he'd been playing Dean and this was just sort of his persona at that time, but it could be like an episode of Supernatural almost.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Well, it came out in 2005, so he actually had not really been playing Dean, if at all, very long.
Maybe a season, right?
Yeah. Well, 2005 is when everything started. So Devour came out, which means they probably really filmed it 2004.
So that it was pre-Dean. So that's just
exactly.
Ackles. Yeah.
I liked the intrigue of it, the mystery of it. I liked that. I liked that the game, they were like, ooh, this game. And he's having these little episodes and he doesn't know what's real. So we don't know what's real. We have the whole unreliable narrator going on. So I really liked all of that. And then like in the final third, it just kind of crashed and burned. So
But like, what if he was Lucifer's son? Then it takes
Right. And we never really know anything. It does not end in any kind of definitive sense. He survives, although many people don't. But we don't know, did he really do it all? Is he just crazy? You know, it's kind of left in that nebulous thing, which I'm often not a big fan of. I want to know how it ends.
Yeah.
And there you can have a kind of nebulous ending if it at least shows a trend. And here we just really have no idea. And it's like as they went along, there was a lot of plot where they're like, okay, now we're going to do this. Oh, now we're going to do this. Like, okay, we're doing this role-playing game and it's all mysterious and people are dying in horrible ways. And then it like takes this left field into it's about Satan.
well, yeah, because
So
So what you're
halfway-
saying is that Dean really should have had more empathy for Jack, you know, whole son of Lucifer sort of thing.
but it was really fun to see all these different screenshots that I've seen as memes or
Mhm.
just clips. And I finally actually got to see them in context. So, you know, it was worth a watch. Don't know if I'll ever watch it again.
I like those ambiguous endings about as much as I like the Fight Club ending, which is to say not at all.
Oh, I love
I-
ambiguous endings.
I'm still heated about the Fight Club ending to this day. And it was one of those few things that I watched in the theater. And I was like, I was with them right up until the last 15 minutes of the movie. And then it was like, okay, thank you for wrecking the movie. I cannot ever watch this again because, wow. So yeah, I'm not a fan of the ambiguous endings. Things don't have to be wrapped up in a little bow. You can leave enough pieces for like a sequel or something, but give me an ending. Give me
Yeah,
something or the sequel.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
one
kind
or
of
the
like
other.
they didn't even know how to end it. What do you think,
Yeah.
guys? Flip a quarter. Oh man, it landed in the mud. We can't see which side's up. So just send them off in the cop car.
Just stick a crook hook out there and yank them off the stage, you know?
Hey, I'm just feeling for the filmmakers. Like, they did a good job, like with what they had. So
All right. How about Friday the 13th?
crickets.
Layla, back to you again.
So I just binge watched the entire Friday the 13th franchisey thingy for Halloween. And you know, for what it was, it was a Friday the 13th movie. It could have fit in anywhere. Anybody could have really played that part too. Like there was just nothing. It was just a their spot, you know.
Yeah.
It's a movie that you can watch and be like, was I scared? No. Did it sort of entertain me? Okay, yeah. If it's October and I want the horror stuff on in the background, wonderful. Any other time of the year, am I going to choose to put that one on? No.
All right. Carol.
So the hard part for me is I'm not a fan of the slasher movie genre. So I had watched this some years ago because I was like, I'm going to watch everything they're in and then I'll make my own decision. So I had watched it and I was genuinely surprised by the ending. It didn't see it coming. Partly because I'm like, well, they're not going to make, Jensen be the villain. Surprise. So this time when I rewatched it, I knew it was coming. And I still could not have told that was how it was going to end. Excuse me. So points for that. Massive loss of points for the completely gratuitous scene of naked woman running around for her life in the motel parking lot. That was just like, where's the barf bag? Because that was just gross. And thinking about Jensen and the way he is, I can only imagine that he was appalled. He's always been extremely considerate of his partners in any kinds of undress scenes and stuff. I mean, there was just no point to that. There was no point to that.
Wait,
and I was kind of surprised how long it went on. I'm sorry.
This is Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Isn't that Jared though? That's not Jensen, right?
Yeah, it is Jared.
Yeah, it's Jared.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I on the wrong movie?
Yeah, Friday the 13th.
Friday
Oh,
the 13th.
Oh, because you know what? I mixed up my sheet. My cheat sheet here is wrong. All right, let's go to Friday the 13th. Well, you're jumping years now. So we went from 2005, now we're on 2009. All right, it's still a slasher movie. Although it does not have the gratuitous naked woman around the parking lot, it does have the gratuitous let's watch the girl bounce on her boyfriend so that we get lots of boob action.
Yeah, it's a Friday the 13th.
And we
we
know
still
who's
have
going to die
gratuitous.
because, they always would.
And let us not we must acknowledge the wardrobe department's brilliant decision to put Jared Padalecki in the skin tight gray t-shirt for the entire movie, which many shots and memes have graced the internet.
It's probably from his own wardrobe, you know.
Other than that, it's a slasher movie, and it's numbing to me. So I'm watching the movie, and by about the third body in, I'm kind of like, I don't care how inventive they get about this. Someone's going to get something sharp in some portion of their body.
Right.
And it's over. So I watched it, and again, we have the ambiguous ending. We think, aha, they've done it. And then, haha, maybe they didn't. And yeah, does Clay survive? We don't know.
You can't end those movies because they have a
Because it has to keep going on. Yeah. So will I ever watch it again? No. Will I enjoy the shots and clips of Jared in that t-shirt online? Absolutely.
Once they took that Friday the 13th franchise to space, that was between they took it to space, they took him to hell, and they took him to Manhattan. Come on.
I love
Manhattan.
I love space. That one is awesome. I love it. I think it's so brilliant and ridiculous. Like, we don't know what to do with him. We have to freeze him. So let's put him on like a spaceship with a bunch of kids. Like,
oh my God.
The one thing, did they send him and Leprechaun in space together? Because come on. Was this some kind of jettison the weird, creepy, monsters off the planet or something?
I guess it seems like a good idea at the time. Yeah.
So Hansi, Friday the 13th.
Yeah, I felt Jared was wasted in it. He's just a character. He really didn't have the personality as a character. He was just one of the teens waiting to get slaughtered.
Okay.
But he was somebody for us to root for. That was really the only thing. He's looking for his sister, which is a noble motivation. True. So, and he's clean cut and handsome and polite to people, so we have all these things that we like him at least. But that's about it. And yeah, he could have been any kind of nice, handsome, clean cut young man. It didn't have to be him, or there's nothing remarkable about him.
Okay.
It's like sticking Chris Hemsworth in Cabin in the Woods. I mean, what was that all about?
Yeah.
What?
I said it was like sticking Chris Hemsworth in Cabin in the Woods. Is a pretty face that played a character, but there was nothing special or unique about that character.
Yeah. So House of Wax. Let's start with Hansi this time.
Yeah, it's another one of those remakes that, the original is part of me, and the remakes are always a little questionable. Yeah, it's okay. It's just an average horror movie for me. It's not, anything particularly special.
All right. Carole.
I mean, it certainly has the creepy elements of, there is something to me kind of inherently creepy about the wax figures, that whole kind of mannequin, golem-y, they're so close to real, but they're not real, and so lifelike, but not alive. And, that's a great little sandpit to play in, sandbox to play in. Of course, Jared only makes it halfway through the movie, but we get to see a lot of him before he goes. There's a plus. We can never forget the famous moment from the Boston, the one and only Boston Supernatural Con, where someone had asked him about his wardrobe for that scene, and he was saying it's a sock, and she said, "Oh, do they make them in your size?"
Oh.
He dropped the mic, and it was a solo panel because Jensen wasn't there. He dropped the mic, leapt off the platform, hugged this woman. Well, the crowd went wild. But yes, poor Jared really gets it in a horrible way. And it's I think as horror movies go, it's definitely got a higher creep factor. The body count is still a body count, but it's not all about blood and gore and being pierced by sharp objects. It's a little more, not quite cleverly done, but ickily done. And we have a little more star power
A
because
little
we
more
also
budget.
had
too.
Yeah.
Chad Michael Murray. Of course, we had Paris Hilton making one of her few film appearances, and Elijah Cuthbert, who was up and coming at that point, but has since gone on, like she was on 24 for a long time, and is much more recognizable now in the film and TV world. So they were all young, they're all pretty, they're all doing stupid things. So it was enjoyable. I don't know if I'd run out and watch it, but I could see watching that like at Halloween every year kind of thing.
So Chad Michael Murray, when he's not in fan fiction, and
But he's still wacky.
but he's still wacky, and Paris Hilton, who then showed up in a
Yeah.
supernatural episode
wax
in a wax
museum
museum.
Yep.
So gotta make sure we get the call outs here to what actually then happened later on in Supernatural, which just loves its in jokes. Layla, how about you?
The first time I watched it, I was like, oh, this is cool. And then my roommate was like, but have you watched the original? Oh, there's an original. So to give that some context, my roommate went to school for film and she's a horror buff. So she's always like, here, watch these older films and compare them to the remakes. And when I do, I'm always like, oh man, that remake that I maybe liked a little bit, now I don't like it all, because something about when you remake something and you're using the modern lighting and you're trying to ramp up that gore factor, like that pit of dead animals, not necessary. That was not, you can establish so much with camera and close-ups and lighting and the creepiness factor without going to the, dead critter, gore, swampy, everything smells and there's flies everywhere. But, it honestly, sometimes it feels like lazy filmmaking, that you want to rely on the shock value to the audience rather than setting up a tone and like bringing them through this creepy, what in the world did she just have me watch? It's like Black Christmas. She had me watch the original and the remake. And it's like, why did they go for this gore?
Well, but the thing is, the remakes are good because they bring a younger audience who will then look at the original and be like, oh, that's really interesting. Like my daughter just watched Jordan Peele's Candyman, and she's not a horror buff, but has been watching horror with me. And she said how great it was. And I said, oh, you have to watch the original. And she's like, is there, the racial issues? And I was like, absolutely. Yeah. You have to,
Right.
Yeah. So remakes have their value.
So My Bloody Valentine, which was also the title for a Supernatural episode. Hansi?
I actually like that one. I like the original, and I like Jensen in that. Although he is definitely playing against type, Yeah, he's interesting in that. I like that film.
Okay. Any other thoughts about the film?
It's kind of weird to see him as the bad guy. I mean, he didn't really, even in Devour, I didn't feel like he was the bad guy. I felt like this was happening to him. Somehow we're always rooting for them, whether they're good or bad.
Hey, we all like Team and Dean,
I concur with that though, because Jake himself in Devour doesn't know what the heck's going on. This stuff is just happening around him. Is he losing his mind? His friends are dying, so he's as much at sea as the viewer. Whereas yeah, My Bloody Valentine is a whole different kettle of fish. So, and
I
that's where I was
love that
saying when I was talking about the wrong movie,
Oh,
that, we don't expect him to be the bad guy. And it is a surprise. And even on my rewatch, I was surprised. I was like, okay, now that I know, I'm going to see. And I didn't. It still was kind of a surprise. Although they did at least show, because that confrontation near the end where he's locked in the cage and yet somebody's killed, and at that point you do know that it's him, and it's like, well, then how did he do that? And they showed that, which that at least clears it up, and I liked that. I was like, okay, they're not just waving a wand, saying, oh yeah, he just materialized outside the cage. I mean, they showed the process of it. And there, even though the ending's a little ambiguous, we know he lived. We know how he gets away, which was, quite clever. And is he going to go on and kill again? Well, probably, but that's another movie. So, other than the 3D stuff, when you're just watching it on TV, is just like a little cringy. Here comes that pickaxe right towards you.
remember the original House of Wax, and they gave you the 3D glasses, and the ping pong ball coming at the screen.
Layla?
Loved that I didn't see the ending coming the first time. It was definitely one of those was like, wait a minute, what?
Oh, cool.
Because I really the whole way through, like I was right there with the okay, is it a ghost story, or did the guy just did they think they kill him and he's back? Like I was looking at all those directions, and then as it got to that ending and he's in that cage, like you mentioned, it's like, okay, he's in the cage, someone's killed it. We've got to have like some kind of a ghost thing, something's going on. And then they show that and they reveal it's him, and it's like, holy crap, okay, this one actually got me with the ending. Which I love, because I was sympathetic to his character all the way up to through as well. Like I was rooting for him. I thought that some of the townspeople were just being awful, and then we get to the end and it's like, oh crap. Okay.
And the whole triangle there with the sheriff being his old foe, and the sheriff's wife being his old flame, and she's trying to support him, and the sheriff's like, no, I know something's wrong, and you know what, he was right.
Right. And I mean,
and there was some good twisting in there. Yeah,
I was really at the sheriff about, dude, let it go, for crying out loud, you're with her and he left town, and why do you got to make it this thing? And it was definitely one of those movies that if I did a podcast, I'd have been yelling at the screen.
And I think he did a good performance in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
He did a real good performance in it. So
yeah,
Okay.
to be able to, keep everyone thinking he's innocent,
right,
and not foreshadow that, in his acting. Yeah, guy's good.
Yeah.
So there were two more that showed up when I Googled that I'm not familiar with. Cry Wolf and House of Fears.
I've seen both.
Okay. Kick us off, Hansi.
Cry Wolf was kind of interesting. Jared's in it, but again, not really used, to the fullest, and then what's the one, House of Fear? Yeah, he's literally in it for 5 seconds. He's goes through the room at the frat house or something, and then that. And you're just like, wait, there has to be more.
Carole?
I had never even heard of House of Fears, so I got nothing on that. Cry Wolf, I was not able to find it for a rewatch because I really did. It's been a while since I've seen it, and I really did want to watch it again. Especially because I think the one I watched it the first time, I may not have been aware, oh, well, Sandy McCoy became his fiance later. And I certainly didn't remember that John Bon Jovi was in it. That was a shocker when I was looking it up this time. And also one of the actresses who actually is one of the main characters is Lindy Booth. who was on an episode of Supernatural, the one where they get re-virginized.
Oh,
And Dean has that great scene where he's talking about sex, and all the celibate women are like, and she's the villainess who, of that particular episode. She's also in The Librarians for a while, and she's one of those actresses that I see her. She has a distinctive look. She's very very
who was she in The Librarians?
She was the math whiz, the redhead.
Okay.
Yep. And she's got, so she's got red hair. She's got this kind of like girlish, not mature, but like she always kind of portrays a little bit of innocence and stuff, which of course in this movie was really interesting because she's not innocent at all. So she gives a really good performance. Yeah, Jared is just kind of there. He's one of the group, and a lot of them were very kind of interchangeable. They were all just like, they're all these rich kids at this prep school and wearing their little blazers and their little ties and stuff. So nothing particularly noteworthy there. That is also, that one and House of Wax are also 2005. So filmed, either before or just as Supernatural is beginning. So I don't want to say he's forgettable, but he's part of this group, and he's not terribly distinguishable as this group is kind of moving around through the process of the movie, until they find out what's happening. Of course, with Cry Wolf, the whole thing is that they keep, sounding an alarm for deaths that aren't really happening. And then when deaths begin to happen, nobody believes them. So,
well, if he just walked through the room, he could have fit that in with his Supernatural film schedule. Layla?
No, the Cry Wolf I've seen maybe once. It just another one where it's like another frat boy movie. Something takes place. What's the other? Oh, there's so many of them too. I watched one not long ago, and it was like they were witches or something. Their powers came in. The Covenant or something like that. They just become interchangeable, especially when they've got that hodgepodge of 4 or 5 close friends, and they're all dressed pretty alike going through the movie.
I know, and they look alike, and you're like, wait, who's who? Like, they're not memorable. It's like it's so frustrating. Like, at least
like they got put in a blender,
something.
And then they got doled out.
Give one a baseball cap. I don't know, No.
All right, so here we get into the AU section of the panel and go, what horror movies would you like to see J2 together or separately cast in? And we'll go around and do one each time. So if you could put Jared and or Jensen separately or together in a horror movie, what would you put them in? Hansi?
Shaun of the Dead. You're hilarious.
Right up there with Zombieland and some of those, yeah.
Like right in,
The humor, the snark.
The Winchester.
The Winchester.
Mhm.
Yeah. Carole?
Well, let's see. I don't know about a specific movie, but here's what I would love to see Jared as a vampire. I think he could rock the vampire thing with the cheekbones and
yeah.
Does Jensen have to be in Lederhosen?
Jensen would be awesome as Dr. Frankenstein.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I can totally see him being all serious and intense and
channeling that whole possessed by Michael or being in hell kind of thing.
Right. My creation, the heck with the villagers. And then together, I don't know if it would be a horror movie, but certainly a murder mystery kind of thing. They would be awesome as Leopold and Loeb, from like the Hitchcock movie.
Yikes.
And I say that, and I'm not a fan in AUs and fanfic and stuff. I'm actually not a fan of the serial killer trope in general. It's just not, it's a big popular one, and I cannot go there. But there's, you know, with Leopold and Loeb, especially like the Hitchcock movie, it was all about uncovering the mystery. It wasn't about the body count. The bodies had happened. It was the tracking down and the unraveling of what had happened that is so intriguing. And I can see them having that whole kind of wholesome, smart, charming thing going on. And so nobody would think it's them, you know? Yeah, so that would be really interesting. But yeah, Dr. Frankenstein and
Dracula.
Dracula.
Okay, Layla?
While it would be so interesting to see them in some kind of like Telltale Heart Poe retelling, I've got to go completely different because I am a sucker for anything Rob Zombie. And I would love to see the two of them in something that Rob Zombie wrote specifically designed for them. Like not a spin-off of Devil's Rejects or anything like that, but I would like to see them in some kind of gritty rock and roll hardcore crazy film that he would create for them that would be part horror and part supernatural and kind of leave you wondering, are the humans the bad guys or there's some creepy stuff going on here? Like that's the kind of thing I would like to see them in.
Okay. I'm going to go with Sweet Home, which is a Korean horror movie, and it is set in this kind of gritty apartment building, and you get this feel. Never rent a really cheap apartment in Seoul. I'm just saying, I learned this from the movie. And you already know before the really bad stuff happens that the other people in this apartment building are not playing with a full deck. But then the zombies come. And then the whole apartment building's kind of on lockdown with the zombies outside. And then, of course, that just intensifies the crazy on the people on the inside. And I think that Jared Jensen, particularly as Sam and Dean, could handle that and deal with that. Even if they weren't in their Sam and Dean personas, I think they could have dealt with that threat.
We're gonna see Jeffrey Dean Morgan in as like
That's right. Jeffrey Dean could have been like the rough, tough military commander who's, you know, forcing his will on everything and screwing everything up, and Jared and Jensen are breaking all the rules to deal with the zombies more directly. Yeah, we know how this goes. Round two on this. Layla, what else would you put them in?
I would put them in a remake of The Wraith. I would play up the aspect of the car, and I would use something similar to that Charger from Supernatural, because to see that car done in some style where it could come back like that, and to see the dynamic between those two play out and put them in, you know, again as brothers in that position from The Wraith would just be absolutely amazing to see that. And you got the revenge aspect as the one is hunting down, you know, the killers with the car. Yeah, I would put them in a remake of The Wraith and I would play up that car.
Very good. Carole?
Just going for the humor. Like, I would love to see them in any of those kind of campy horror movies, like Night of the Lepus with the giant bunny.
Flamageddon.
Yeah.
Flamageddon.
You know, Godzilla movies. And there'd be the little Japanese singing girls, and they'd be like, what?
Well,
you
Jensen might be like all over that.
Yeah. Any of that kind of thing would be hilarious. Just hilarious. Like, you know, the genuine threats of it, like old Vincent Price movies, where there's a genuine threat to somebody, but they're so campy and funny, and you know, I like living Mystery Science Theater 3000. You know, you're in this movie, you know, like I say, with giant bunnies or giant ants or giant anything. There was a big rash of these giant movies. It was, you know, post nuclear bomb stuff, and so all these movies had like mutants and things.
Attack of the Killer Tomato.
Yeah, and it would be they'd be like having to survive, and they'd have to, of course, save all these people because they're the heroes. But at the same time, they're going to be making all these wisecracks and commenting on the utter lunacy of what's happening around them. And that would just be hilarious.
Okay. Hansi?
Something like the Blob.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
That would be awesome. What's the freaking name? I watched it with my daughter, and is it Leave This World Behind, or the Julia Roberts, right? That's
Right.
used by the Obamas. I'd like to see them in it instead of the rich people. I hated watching the rich people. Like, they just annoyed me. Like, I want to see blue collar heroes, man. They should be the ones, there.
And Jensen, they wouldn't have anything to do with freaking Teslas.
They have Charlie hacking and helping.
Yeah, Charlie would have gotten to the bottom of it.
Well, I'd much rather see Jensen than Nicolas Cage in Ghost Rider. You know,
Ooh.
that
Oh,
motorcycle,
yeah.
the skull.
That would've
Yes.
been-
He
yeah.
he could do that real well. And I'd love to see the two of them in pretty much any of the post-apocalyptic horror movies like Pitch Black or 28 Days, or any of the post-apocalyptic ones, which would really be giving us an extension of the end, the post-apocalyptic supernatural episode. Because again, I think, they would just be a great setting for them, and they'd knock it out of the park. And so I would love to see them put their monster hunting chops to good use in those movies. One more round on this, folks. What else would you love to see them in? Layla?
Oh gosh, that's hard. Kind of a remake. Anything Sherlock Holmes actually would be really cool.
Yeah.
Any kind of remake of that, but also
Which one is which?
Sleepy Hollow. Oh, which one is which? I could see. Oh man, I could see Jared as Sherlock and Jensen as Holmes. Yeah, I could really see that, and the dynamic between the two, the sarcasm that would come. So any Sherlock Holmes, but also no, I would love to see them do, something that would be more modern too. Be fun.
I'm laughing because in the background, my puppy is squeaking the heck out of a bloody hatchet stuffed toy that was his BarkBox Halloween toy. So he's running back and forth with a stuffed bloody hatchet squeaker as we're discussing horror movies.
Oh,
Carole?
I like the Sherlock Holmes thing, but I think I would reverse it. I would have Jared be Holmes.
Yeah.
With the fanciful, but then the dour, and Jensen is the slightly more even-keeled Watson, kind of documenting and and assisting and stuff. That would be awesome. I don't know about Stephen King in general, because a lot of times the good guys aren't always the good guys either, but I would have loved to see them in The Stand. I love The Stand. I just love it. And
so who would they play in The Stand?
Well, I think Jensen would have to be West Texas guy, whose name Stu. Thank you. And
Jared be the walking dude?
No. He has to be a good guy. I don't want him to be the walking dude. No, I would say we could have a gay re-envisioning of it, and Jared could be Molly Ringwald. So yeah.
Without Craig.
And
Craig, sure.
There you go. Or he could be why is the names escaping me? Like as I'm talking about it, the names are leaving out the back of my brain. MOON spells moon.
Oh, I love that character. Yeah.
You know, I think his character name is Bill Cullen, isn't it? I can't remember who the actor is who did it for.
I remember, but Rob
Baker,
Lowe
right?
was like his buddy and hung out with him. And
Yeah. So yeah, the big, tall, blonde guy who was
on the spectrum,
mentally other abled a little bit, but had a kind of understanding of things that went beyond anything anybody would have thought, and it would come out in like odd ways, and where they're just like, okay, MOON spells moon, and but then he would say something that'd be like, you would get a chill as I'm reading it or watching, forget the remake, the original one. You would get a chill because they're all like, oh my God, how does he understand this? Because it's something he shouldn't even know about, much less understand it. I can see Jared rocking the heck out of that. You know, he would have that
he also
whole,
knows
I'm
signs.
lighthearted and I'm not, I'm not 100% upstairs, but yeah. And at the end, when he and Stu are holed up at the hotel, and
The Winchesters always end up holding up at a hotel somewhere.
but he was like, the one guy's ghost came to them to tell him how to take care of Stu and stuff, things like that. Man, just thinking about it makes me salivate that Jared would be so good in that. And then of course Jensen is Stu, the staunch, rock solid, West Texas boy. You're muted, Gail.
Hansi, how about you?
I would like to see them in a period Western. I love period Westerns, like The Wild Bunch is one of my top 3 favorite movies. I would love to see them in a real Western, and it was such a shame what happened with Rust, but at least they got that sort of on Walker. But yeah, that would be cool to see them both in, like, one is the sheriff of a town or something, one is the bad guy. I just want to see them dressed up in cowboy clothes because they look hot.
Could you imagine them as Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
And I will.
I commissioned artwork of them as Butch and Sundance.
Oh.
So Cammy Dux did some nice pieces for me like that. I think Jensen could really pull off the Daniel Radcliffe role in The Woman in Black. The deserted house out on the English moors, and there's definitely something wrong, but he's the accountant and he needs the money, so he has to stay and carry this through. But he's supposed to be alone in the house, but he's clearly not alone in the house, and creepy fog and all of that. I think that he has the vulnerability to play that role. And then I'd love to see both of them in The Lost Boys. Reprise.
As
I could see Jensen in the Kiefer Sutherland role.
Yeah.
And I just think they would have been a lot of fun in that. And then let's just go right out there and say, let's put them in Rocky Horror Picture Show, because
oh my God,
I think that Jared would camp the heck out of Dr. Frankenfurter.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
And he's got the legs for it. So what can we say?
Oh, Jared and fish. Oh,
I know, in heels. I love tall men.
Not like the fandom hasn't envisioned that before. Just saying. All right, folks, we have come to the end of our time. Let's go around quickly and let everybody know where people can find you online. And if you have a new, recent, or upcoming book or project, let us know. Layla?
You can find me under Layla Dorine all over social media, Layla Dorine author at Wix. I have 2 books that just came out in December, and I have 2 books coming out in February. So there's a lot to choose from.
Okay. Carole?
As Carole Stokes, you can find me in the Continual group and the TFWNC Supernatural group. I'm on Twitter as true_firesign10, Instagram and AO3 firesign10. If you check out AO3, mind the tags. And as Ellis Colton, you can pretty much plug that into any social media. My other social media links are on my Facebook page or on my card page. And my debut novella, Prescription for Love, came out this fall and is available on Amazon.
How about you,
Congratulations.
Hansi?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's see. I've got an essay out in Lindsay Burness, Van Gasmes, PN's book, Soups Ain't Always Heroes on the Boys. And I'm working on an essay about Our Flag Means Death for another book. And I am associate producer on a horror film, indie horror film that's shot in Kentucky last January. And so that's in, final edits. So that should be out soon. It's called New Fear's Eve with Phyllis Rose and Dave Sheridan. And Jeffrey Reddick, who wrote all the Final Destination, is also in it. So, and everything, find me at Squee Projects everywhere.
I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com, morganbryce.com. Those are also, I'm on all the social medias under one or both of those names. So if you spell them right, you'll find me. I do run the Supernatural TFWNC group here on Facebook. I run the Supernatural track on Continual. My dog is making a lot of noise in the background. I'm a columnist for the Winchester Family Business blog, but most of the time you can find me here on Continual. Latest book is Signs and Wonders as Morgan Bryce, and there'll be more stuff coming out in the new year. So thank you all so much for the dogs. Thank you all so much for being here. And there will be more Supernatural, so we'll see you online.